Right, this week we're going to continue with what we began last week, which was grace notes and accents. Now what we're going to do is put those two together so that we're using both hands simultaneously. Now we're going to start with triplets, or groups of 3. So we're going to do 8 accents on each hand. Now initially, if I just explain, so what we did last week was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those were the accented triplets. And then we had the grace notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remembering there was no accents on those notes at all. So then when we put them together, we have a group of 6 notes, which normally a group of 6 semiquavers are called sextuplets. So, and that will sound a bit like this. Okay, so now I'm just going to demonstrate why we've separated these and why it's worthwhile working on them hands separately and not just going straight into this. So I'll do it again and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. So. Okay, so hopefully you can understand the difference between the accented note and the grace note. Now that might seem rather straightforward and obvious, but I feel as though to really get this technique mastered to a high level, it is best to separate the 2 hands and focus on just the notes that you're trying to produce of each hand. And the grace notes are very difficult to maintain at such a low volume, which is why it's worth practicing them on their own, I feel personally. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to turn this into an exercise that we can use to develop this technique in our practice. So we want to be able to swap hands. As I have mentioned before, it's always a good idea to have both hands as equal as possible. So we're going to do 8 accents on each hand. When we get to the 8th accent, we're going to stop playing the grace notes, so that you just hear the 8th accent and then no grace notes. But as if those grace notes were there, we will come in time on the next accent, but this time with the left hand leading. So that stop after the 8th accent allows us to move to the other hand without doing anything more complicated. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate that now. 5, 6, 7, stop. 6, 7, stop. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few times and build the speed. Now you can play along if you wish, or you can just use it as a guideline to know what you're working towards. Okay? Da, 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 da. Okay, so that gives you an idea. Now, must remember to stay relaxed at all times, as we keep saying. So basically, if you feel that tension starting to creep in, then that's when you need to slow down again. And as I mentioned before, it's not a bad idea to, as soon as you feel tension, you can kind of set that as your maximum tempo for that particular time, and then slow right down so that you relax again. Because really, we want to play relaxed all the time. We never want to play with tension, ever. Because then we're out of control. We can't fully control what's going on if we're not relaxed. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next bit, which is groups of accented twos. And then obviously, when we put that together with the other hand, that's a group of 4. Now, a group of 4 is sometimes called quadruplets, but normally would be called semiquavers. So if we remember, we had the accented groups of 2s, and the grace notes to go with it. And we put those together. Okay, so we want to get that into an exercise like we did before. So we're going to do 8 accents and then stop on the 8th accent and then swap hands to come in on the next accent in time, but this time with the left hand leading. So I'm going to go through it again like I did before, just as a guide really. If you wish to play along, that's absolutely fine, but it's just a guide for you to know what you're working towards in your own practice. Okay? Da, 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 da. Okay, it seems to be quite short to me. When you start building up the tempo, it seems to be over a bit quickly before we've had a chance to really settle into it and feel relaxed. So when I'm practicing this myself, I like to do 16 accents on each hand, but rather than count to 16, I count 8 every other accent. That's just something that you might want to think about as the speed develops. Okay, so semiquavers, accented groups of 4, is used quite a lot more than the sextuplets might be. Sometimes we find sextuplets are just thrown in like a group of 6 all of a sudden in the middle of a rhythm. But very often, semiquavers, groups of 4, quadruplets, are used as an actual groove. And when it's done really fast and quiet, it can provide real energy and excitement to the piece of music that it's accompanying. This is what we're really aiming. All of these accents and grace notes can be used in themselves, but the semiquavers is what we're really working towards to create this really solid groove. Anyway, that's for the future. So we'll move on to the next bit. Now we're going to move on to triplets, accented groups of 3 on both hands. As a group of 3 notes, so when we do this together, we're forced to play the second accent on the other hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then this hand's next, 1, 2, 3. So it's alternate accents, which is why it's impossible to practice this hands separately. But everything we've done so far has laid the foundations to go straight into two-handed triplets. So I'll just demonstrate some triplets now. Now that's all very well, but I find that after a while of doing that it gets a little bit tedious and it's very difficult to maintain concentration. With the other exercises, that stop where we changed hands just helps to freshen up our mind, keep us concentrating, keep us locked into what we're doing. So what I would recommend is, rather than just playing straight triplets, maybe play an exercise. So I've got 2 exercises for you. The first one's called 7 3s and 15. So we have 7 accented triplets, and the 7th is a sextuplet, which gives us a little bit of a break. So we do that twice, 7 accents, sextuplet, then 7 more accents, the 7th being the sextuplet again, and then we do 15 accents. So effectively we've got 2 8-bar phrases, and then we double it. So it's another 2 8-bar phrases, 16 bars. So if I just demonstrate that now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? And then that 15th note, stop, which would be sextuplets but we're stopping, is then an opportunity to change to the other hand. So I'll just run through this exercise a few times. Okay, so that's that one done. 7 3s and 15. 2. Quite a... No! Right, there's a cut there.